Welcome to the Positive Impact Podcast, where we dive into the world of movers, shakers, and changemakers, creating a positive impact on the world. This is your host, Alexandra Black-Pollock, and together we're going to tackle real issues, discovering how we can make the world a better place. This episode of the Positive Impact Podcast is brought to you by HelloFresh, delicious, healthy, and fresh meals delivered straight to your door. Enjoy cooking again with scrumptious and easy-to-prepare meals 3 nights a week. Visit positiveimpactpodcast.com/fresh for $40 off your first box. Today I'm joined by the fabulous Stephanie Burns, founder and CEO of Chic CEO. This inspiring organization bridges the entrepreneurial gap for women, giving them the tools, resources, and community to start a business. Chic CEO made quite a splash in the business world. Only 6 months after launching, they took the title of one of the top 10 entrepreneurial resources for women out there. Stephanie Burns, you are the driver and the passion behind this incredible organization. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. That's quite an intro.
I'm glad. You're quite a person. I'm super excited to have you today.
Thank you so much. Really excited to be here.
So let's start off diving into why there's even a need for an organization like Chic CEO.
Sure. So I started Chic CEO because I was in grad school and I was getting my MBA, and this was around 2008. And that's when the recession hit and everyone was starting to get laid off. So a lot of my girlfriends were coming to me asking me how to get a business started. And, they were losing their jobs. They were trying to start little things on the side so they could pay their bills. And I said, I don't know. Why are you asking me this? And they said, well, you're getting your MBA. Aren't you learning how to start a business? And I said, no, I'm learning how to run a business. I couldn't tell you how to go down to the courthouse and file the paperwork and what kind of legal entity you should be. And, all these questions that you have at the beginning. So this kept coming up over and over and over again. And so I finally got all of my girlfriends who kept asking into my living room, and I gave them a bunch of wine and cheese and started asking them a bunch of questions. Where are you getting your advice from? How are you saving for your taxes? What have you done already? And a lot of them they were saying that they were getting their answers from either Google or their dad. And, I kind of started looking around the room, and there were 15 girlfriends in there, 15 girlfriends, just my friends that were asking these questions and couldn't find answers. And these are smart, talented, driven women that should be able to find a simple answer. So I thought, man, if I just have 15 of my friends asking these questions, there has to be a market here. So I started doing some research and decided that the business plan for Chic CEO would be my final thesis project for my MBA. And that's how it got started. And then in the end of 2009, I got laid off, just like all of my friends did. And I had graduated by then, and I pulled my business plan off the shelf and I got to work. And by December of 2010, we launched. And by June of 2011, we were named in Forbes as one of the top 10 entrepreneurial websites for women.
So I just have this image of you and all these women just really struggling to identify how to start the business, what to do, and just sitting in your living room. Of course, wine and cheese, you got to have that for anything.
That's right.
And I love how you took this passion of really wanting to help and identifying friends that needed help and just all the questions that you're getting asked and took it into a business. Recently, we interviewed Leslie from Geek Girls, and she did the same thing. She just took questions that she was always being asked because she was in tech. Of course, she knows all the answers to every tech question. And so she just took all these people asking her questions and turned it into a business. Mm-hmm. So I really admire that about both of you, that you were able to take just people coming up and asking you questions and turn it into a business.
And I think that's probably one of the best ways to do that is to, to start your business, is to really kind of look around and find out, what are people asking you? What are people coming to you for? It's just the easiest way to get started.
So when you were building these resources, who did you turn to bring Chic CEO to life?
Well, luckily for me, I was in business school.
That is helpful. Even if they're not teaching you how to run or how to start a business, they're only teaching you how to run it.
Right. That was immensely helpful. Chic CEO is the culmination of a lot of what I learned in business school. And, research. It took me a full year to research, write, um, create, and launch Chic CEO. So it took a really long time for me to dig in and write it all.
Chic CEOs made quite an impact. You guys have worked with 90,000 women from all over the US. What kind of trends are you seeing? What are the most common questions? What are the biggest struggles for women launching their own business?
Um, I think some of the biggest struggles are women aren't quite sure where to start. Um, and as women, we tend to be a little more risk averse because when we think about starting a business, we realize that when we start a business, it's not just us starting a business, it's usually our inner circle that's starting a business too, meaning our family or the people that are closest to us. So when we start an endeavor like this, we know that we're taking along the people that we care about. We're responsible for our children or our spouse or, maybe our parents. So when we think about jumping into something as scary as entrepreneurship, we know that those people are going to take the ride with us. So we tend to be a little more risk averse and we're not quite sure our next move, knowing that, you know, there's risk involved and the people that we love could potentially be taken with us. So for women, we really need to have all the answers to all of our questions before we get started. And you can probably relate to this in almost anything that we do. And we plan a wedding or we decide we're going to have a baby or we're going to buy a car. We want all the questions and all the answers up front. So that's kind of what I was hoping to bring with Chic CEOs. Every single thing that you could possibly want and know is there on Chic CEO. It's there and it's free so that we can get started. But there's lots of different ways to get started in your business, but having your questions answered, I think, is the first place that women like to start.
And that can also be a big strength in our, basically, as we move
For
forward.
sure. For sure. It just takes us a little longer sometimes. That's all.
But that way, I mean, we've gone through all the questions. It's been vetted. We're pretty sure about it. And then when we launch, there's a couple more ducks in a row.
Right. Right.
So I've got some really fascinating stats by Conscious Company. They recently posted an article about women in business, kind of by the numbers. So I'm going to say a couple of these stats, and then I'd love to kind of see if you're finding this to be very true in the workplace and thoughts you might have about them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one states 12%, and that's the percentage of women in board level positions in corporate America. 16% is the percentage of women in board level positions at S&P 500 companies. On average, women make 78% on the dollar compared with other men, and 60% is a percentage of undergraduate and graduate degrees earned by women. So are these surprising to you? Are these kind of the first time you're hearing them, or is this what you're actually finding as you work with all these different women throughout the US?
Oh, these aren't surprising. These numbers are pretty widely known around our circle. What they are finding though is that morale is better, the bottom lines are better, profit is better when there are women on boards and in the C-suite. Unfortunately, it's taking a lot longer, I think, than we had anticipated to fill those roles. But I think a lot of companies are seeing that there's a lot of value in bringing women on board and women to the board in terms of how it affects the company, how it affects the bottom line, and overall how it affects company culture. So even though those numbers seem kind of low right now, I am very confident that we're working towards equal representation by both genders, because it's very important that we have equal representation by both genders. I don't advocate that women should be taking over everything. I think that we need equality. We need men just as much as men need us, and the people that work for us need both genders in play too. So we all bring something special to the table. It just is time for us to have equal representation.
There's also a lot of potential for innovation and just new approaches when you bring basically half the population back to the table.
Exactly, exactly. And the other thing too that, and I love to talk about, is one of my favorite things that I'm seeing is company culture. You know, um, if you think about it, women haven't been in the workforce all that long. You know, coming from World War II, when women had to go in and really pick up the slack when all the men went off to war. When they came back, we certainly weren't going back to the kitchen. And so we're now out in the workforce, and it hasn't been that long. So we're finding and fighting cultures that aren't necessarily built for us. Biologically, we're the ones that have the babies. We have no choice over that. Men cannot handle that role for us. So we have to find ways in our company culture to allow for that, you know, and I think what's happening is women are starting to create their own cultures. We're creating businesses that create more flexibility and more thought behind what that looks like when we decide to have families too. So the culture is changing, and I think a lot of that has to do with women coming in, creating their own companies, therefore creating their own cultures that actually fit them. So it's an exciting time for us.
What's also really exciting, kind of could be on the horizon, is as all these women start these businesses that maybe are a side business today or they're just starting to launch, those have the potential to be these S&P 500 companies down the road. I mean, they've got great potential. And if they build in these different practices and different company cultures that account for this and really play to the strengths of bringing women into the workforce, down the road, we could have an
Entirely different culture. Yeah, exactly. It's so exciting to see. And there's so many cultures or company cultures now that are um, you know, trying to break the mold and trying to really work on that as well. A while back, I was very close with someone who ran a healthcare company. And he was a father, and he was getting divorced, and he had three toddlers. And so, as now being kind of a newly single dad, he's seeing in his healthcare company, how am I going to take care of these little girls on my own and run this, $6 billion company? So, he implemented a daycare on site and, flex hours and all these things that he was finally seeing that the mothers needed as he became a single dad. So that was so inspiring to see him make changes in his own company culture. It took him going through the actual experience that women have been going through since the beginning of this. But it's really inspiring to see men jump on board too, and know that we need lactation rooms, and on-site daycare is great, and the things that enable us to really focus on our careers without leaving our family behind, and vice versa. So yeah, I think there's big changes coming down the road, and I think a lot of that does have to do with women starting their own businesses, therefore creating their own cultures.
One thing that I really want to emphasize is this isn't necessarily just more benefits for women. One of the incredible things that's come out recently is this idea of paternity leave, that a dad should be able to have the ability to go home and spend time with his brand new baby and create bonding and just be there for those initial first moments. So it's not just women that are seeing these advancements and a lot of these benefits.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. And again, it's really about culture. It seems like it might be about women right now, but it's really about our families. Again, we cannot pass the task of giving childbirth and growing a child in our bellies to men. So we do need a consideration for that. But men definitely need to have the same kind of um, consideration when it comes to their families, because it's just as important to them as it is to us. And they need time to be home too. Anne Marie Slaughter wrote an article a few years ago. You may have heard when she says why women can't have it all. It caused a huge uproar in the Atlantic. And I saw her speak many months after that at South by Southwest. And, she talked a lot about how important it is for men to be at home with the child too. she really flipped this paradigm on its head and said that, it's not really about mothers and fathers. It's about breadwinners and caretakers. And it doesn't matter what gender you are on either side of that. You one or the other. It doesn't matter if you're a male caretaker and you're female breadwinner, or vice versa. So it really is about how do we fit family into business without, alienating your career or having it end because you went on maternity leave, those kinds of things. It's ridiculous. So again, I think it's an exciting time because our cultures are shifting, with the advent of women really coming on board.
You talked about shifting paradigms, and one of the paradigms that we're slowly, it's glacier slow, starting to see is this ability for dads to stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's such stereotypes there, but sometimes maybe a dad is better to stay at home. And maybe in that particular family unit, the woman's more, she's more designed for the workforce. And it just to be able to have it and to create a work environment and to create a family environment that works best for that family without having all these like really negative stereotypes around it. Once we get there, it's going to be really incredible.
I agree. And that's definitely something that Anne Marie Slaughter also mentioned. We can't belittle men for taking on that role, because it's not an easy role to take on stay-at-home dad.
It's really not. And
it's not.
Stay-at-home moms the same way. I applaud you. I don't know how you do it.
Right. And so, it's just as hard to stay at home as it is to go and work. So we really need to take away those stereotypes, and let men be masculine in this role, which they are. That's a very difficult role to be in, being a stay-at-home parent. So yeah, I think it's an interesting time. It's going to be cool. We're excited.
20, 30, 40 years down the road, we're going to have an entire different work culture in the US. It's going to be amazing.
It is.
And overall, it's just going to be better.
I agree.
So I'd love to shift now and kind of talk about community. Chic CEO really emphasizes community either through their events, through their Facebook groups, through their ability to connect with other women in these different roles. When you structured Chic CEO, why did you emphasize community? What was kind of the thought behind that?
The 15 women in my living room. That's where it all started. They needed each other. They needed me. I needed them. And so that's kind of where it all started. We have people from all over the globe that use Chic CEO. I thought it would just be women in the US. It's not. We have women in Dubai, Serbia, Canada, Australia, London, Bali, Mexico, from all over the place that use Chic CEO. All of the information is geared towards business in the US, but they still use it. And, that's been really fun for me to see women from all over the world. I have a client that's in Estonia.
Oh.
Yeah. And, she's a private client of mine. So it's not just here in the US, and they need each other. And so, the support system is really important when you're starting a business, because it's not easy. And, they really lean on each other, which is really fun to watch.
Man, Chic CEO isn't just shaking up women in business in the US. You're creating this entire global community, which is going to cause global conversations around business.
I hope so.
So next, I really want to talk about partnership, because we've talked about this community and this idea of women being in communities together and really leaning in each other for support. But let's take that one step further and see what role partnerships play in either starting Chic CEO or just starting businesses in general.
Yeah, I mean, partnerships have definitely been a key factor in the growth of Chic CEO. My business partner and I knew this from the very beginning. We knew that we wanted to partner with like-minded companies and like-minded people from the beginning, because we really did and do believe that, rising tide raises all ships. So we never looked at anybody necessarily as competition. But we've subscribed to this thought of collaboration, is what we call it, collaborating
Ooh,
with your competition.
that's an awesome word. We need to like
Yeah,
coin that somewhere.
somewhere. Um, so we've been partnering with people from the onset of Chic CEO, and it's been great for us, and I highly recommend it for anybody that's trying to build a community.
That's awesome. So, specifically, can you tell us a little bit about how partnerships have helped spur a Chic CEO forward, or maybe how some of these partnerships have worked out to, as you mentioned, high tide raises all ships?
Yeah, so a good example is Geek Girl, Leslie Fishlock, who you mentioned earlier. She's one of our strategic partners and one of my dear friends. We support each other in everything that we do. So every time she has a tech con, Chic CEO is one of the major media sponsors, and we promote her work. And every time we have a launch, she does the same for us. We've been in partnership with Inc. magazine. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what we're both trying to get out of it from a goal standpoint. But we're always open to any kind of partnership that affords us
Mutually
to move.
beneficial.
Exactly. Thank you. One thing that we do subscribe to and that we make sure that we always put in place when we do a partnership is what we call the win-win-win deal.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so it has to fit three wins. It has to win for Chic CEO, it has to win for our Chic CEO community, and it has to win for the other partner, in whatever capacity that means. So a lot of times people will come to Chic CEO and say, "Hey, I've got this great product. I'd love to offer it to your community for 50% discount." I just got one of these emails yesterday. I swear I get one every day. I think that your audience would love my new ebook or my new product, and I'm willing to give them a huge discount. You just promote it. Well, that's a win for you, and that's a win for the Chic CEO community. That is not a win for Chic CEO. Basically, I would be working for you for free to promote your product, make you sales. And so rarely does somebody come to Chic CEO with a win-win-win deal. And when they do come with a win-win-win deal, 9 times out of 10, I say yes. So it's really about making sure that everybody wins in the partnership so that nobody's left out.
I think that's really important because so often, and I know I find this personally, you really want to help everyone, but you have to be intentional about making sure that some of your moves are beneficial for you. And I know I come across it a lot with creating pricing structures or just things like that, and really valuing what you bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, if you're trying to put together partnership deals, make sure it wins for everybody and that it's beneficial for all parties involved. And then, you'll probably get a yes.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back to when you first started Chic CEO. You have this incredible desire to help those women that are sitting in your living room. How do you turn this into a business?
Well, I studied some business models that I thought would, could be my avenue. So, I don't know if you remember Ladies Who Launch. They're defunct now, I believe, but they were kind of the impetus on why I created Chic CEO. My friends and my 15 friends, they couldn't find information, and there was a lot of things that were out there, but they were all behind a cash curtain. So Ladies Who Launch, you could join, but it was $300 a year and then $25 a meeting or something along that line. And you really weren't sure what you were going to get. What kind of information were you going to get? There's all sorts of courses and things out there. And it just didn't seem to feel right because all of this ground level information is somewhere. People are starting businesses every day, so I knew it was somewhere. So
People have been starting businesses for a long time too.
Exactly. So, I just couldn't understand it being behind a cash curtain. So that's kind of why I thought, well, I'll just aggregate all of this and put it into one place for free. So I knew that putting it behind a cash wall how, ladies who launched had done it wasn't going to work for me. So I kind of looked around and I saw the daily candy and daily worth model. And I had come from an advertising background and knew, okay, well, I know media sales, and that's how we'll do it. We'll grow our list, and then we'll sell advertising on the newsletter. So that kind of went well. But as we're growing organically, your list doesn't get very big very fast. It's a slow grow.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we're at 90,000 now, it took us 5-6 years to get there. And when Facebook came out with Facebook ads a few years ago, it kind of tanked everybody that had the business model that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to go back to the drawing board a little bit. So we now have, we have a membership program, and we have some other, we do still do advertising deals, but I think that was a good lesson in that your business model might have to change if something comes along and disrupts it. But the essence of what you're trying to do should always remain the same, your vision. So helping women has always been our vision, and helping them get their entrepreneurial dream off the ground has always been our vision. How we make money might have to change.
That's so essential. You always keep the main goal, but how you get there might change.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you touched on some of them, but I'd love to expand on other hurdles that you had to overcome when you were starting your business. Because as everyone knows, there's nothing easy about starting a business, which is what Chic CEO is there to help you to do. But just what were those other hurdles or struggles maybe in the first year? Can you tell us a little bit about that roller coaster?
Yeah. Well, some of the hurdles always is cash flow. When you're starting out, it's difficult if you don't have an investor, or you don't have some money already put into the business. You don't have a budget to market. That can make it difficult. So that's kind of one of the reasons why Jody and I, my business partner Jody, and I were so adamant about partnerships and collaboration, and any way that we could get scrappy to get our name out there. And we actually call it bootstrapping, getting scrappy while you're bootstrapping. So, that was a hurdle for us, but at the same time, it was a great lesson for us. We were hungry, and we were out there. We were networking probably 3 or 4 nights a week. The two of us, for the first 2 years, we were out and about, getting the name out there. We were reaching out with, trying to get in the media as much as possible. Within the first year, we were in Forbes and Wall Street Journal, Amex Open, Fox, just by hustling. So I think that not having a budget, while it was difficult, really forced us to get super creative, which was really fun. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers your questions. I mean, that was one of our struggles, budget, and cash flow. And plus, when you start out the first time, you don't really know what you're doing, you just don't. And, you just kind of wait for the company to take you where it's supposed to go, which is kind of what happened. Now knowing what I know now, I won't make some of those same mistakes again, but I think your first go round, it's just kind of a wide eye, what's going to happen next experience, which is pretty fun.
And let's focus on the fact that mistakes are important.
Oh, yeah.
And failure is important, and we learn from it, even if we're in a society that failure is so taboo. It's really not. It's important. It's a learning step. It's how you're going to get to where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. And, when I do my interview series, I always ask, what's your favorite mistake? Ooh. To all of our interviews, because it really is important. Those things matter, and those are probably going to be your most memorable, pivotal points of your business.
Well, in that case, Stephanie, what is your favorite mistake?
Oh, one of my favorite mistakes was Jody and I launched a crowdfunding platform. And with everything else that we had launched, we had done a lot of research. We talked a lot to our community, and we had been really diligent about making sure that we were providing something that they wanted. except for this crowdfunding platform. We just knew it was going to work. They're going to love it. They're totally going to love it. And we launched it to crickets. And they did not care. They didn't know what it was. They didn't understand what it did. We thought, because we're so entrenched in new tech and those kinds of things, that they would know what crowdfunding was. They didn't. They knew what Kickstarter was, but they just thought Kickstarter was something you put up and then you make millions of dollars. They didn't understand what crowdfunding really was, and that they have to bring the crowd and they really have to work at it. And it was a complete disaster. Luckily for us, we had partnered with another company that would do a rev share, so we didn't have to put up a lot of money to build it. But it did not work. And that was a good lesson for us to not assume anything about our community, even if we do think we already know them very well. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
yeah.
So as you're on this journey, and especially towards the beginning, what was one of those moments that you're like, yes, I'm on the right path. Yes, what I'm doing is worthwhile.
Man, I don't know if I've ever felt like that, to be honest. Constantly questioning it. I think some of the really great press accolades that we've gotten have been validation that we're helping and serving. Being in Forbes and Inc. and Fast Company and Cosmopolitan and those kinds of things where they seek us out has been really nice. Some of the awards that we've won. But I think mostly what really just touches my heart and makes me feel like this is great and this is what I set out to do is when I get notes and emails from women who have been able to really succeed in their dream or get started because of Chic CEO. I think that's probably the most valuable and touching thing for me. I got an email the other day from the wife of one of the guys I went to high school with. And she's in Nebraska, back in Nebraska where I went to high school. And she was like, my husband, Nick, you guys went to high school together and he told me about this and it's helped me so much. She's running a salon. And man, the email was like 3 pages long about how how it helped her so much. And it's moments like those where everything that we've gone through has been worth it, because that's what we set out to do, was make sure that someone like her who's in, Elkhorn, Nebraska, can start her company. So it was great.
Now, I happen to know several of the women who've been in this community through a lot of the mixers that you do. So you must get stories like these fairly often, because I've met some of your phenomenal success stories, and also from not only Chic CEO, but your personal coaching. And they're powerful testimonies to what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, they're pretty great. They're pretty great. I love them all. And then they're all doing so many different things too. They're all working on different things, from, life coaching to cannabis to new tech, to fitness. I mean, it's amazing what they're all working on that's so different, but it's still all the same. I have a client whose company was just valued at $2 billion. And then I have a client who's just starting out, and they both have the same concerns. They both have the same fears, and they both have the same, excitement. And so it really doesn't matter what you're trying to build. We're all kind of going through the same journey,
What are some of those fears they had that were similar? Because that's a huge different spread from starting out to, you didn't start a $2 billion company yesterday.
Right. She did start in September, though.
Oh my God.
I know. So, impressive. But it's just, the fraud complex, where we all feel like somebody's going to burst through the door and point a finger at you and tell you you're a fraud, and somebody's going to, figure you out. Am I making the right decision? Do I sound like a nerd right now? Um, you know, it's all the same. Am I doing well enough? Am I not doing well enough? Or will anybody care what I'm doing? Or does anybody, notice? It's all the same journeys. It's really about confidence, I guess. A lot.
What do you tell women when they come to you with those questions and with those self-doubts?
That we're all feeling the same thing. All of us. That we all sit in front of our computer and cry sometimes.
With our bottle of wine.
Yeah, exactly. Every single one of us do it. We all sit in front of our computer and cry sometimes. We all sit in the shower and think, what the hell did I just do? What am I doing? I think we all have some of those moments, myself included. I think that we all need to talk about it more, and we need to understand that it's part of the process and part of the journey, and that it's completely normal. It's totally normal. We all do it.
And I think that goes back to that idea of, in today's society, we really hide our failures and we don't bring them to the forefront. We don't showcase the learning, and we're just so afraid of failing. So, and the ability to talk about those more, it helps others on different points of their past just by being more vulnerable.
Exactly. And, as Brene Brown talks, vulnerability is really bravery. When you're able to really talk about those kinds of things, you're actually being super brave, because a lot of us aren't brave enough to talk about it. So
it's so true. Mm-hmm. Well, on that amazing note, would you like to shift to some rapid fire?
Sure.
Today's rapid fire is brought to you by backcountry.com. Headed on an adventure? Make sure you have the best gear ready to go. Check out positiveimpactpodcast.com/backcountry for all of our recommendations. So life's a balance of work, passion, and adventure. What was a recent adventure or excursion that you've gone on?
Ooh, my husband and I went to Bali early in the year so I could learn how to computer code with a company called Ruby on the Beach, and we learned Ruby on Rails. So it was our honeymoon / computer camp.
Of course, Chic CEO uses her honeymoon to go learn how to code.
Yeah.
You found an amazing man. Can I just say that?
I certainly did.
What has been your favorite trip to date and why?
My favorite trip to date and why? Last November, my husband took me to Greece.
Ooh.
To propose, and that was my very most favorite trip I think I've ever been on. It was so fun, and it was a short trip, but man, Greece is amazing.
We've highlighted that you found an amazing man, right?
Right.
Who sweeps a woman off her feet to go to Greece to propose?
Him. He's amazing.
So many social entrepreneurs find solace and tranquility in the outdoors. Have you found this to be beneficial in your journey?
Yes. Living in San Diego, I don't think that I took advantage of it enough. But last summer, I decided that every day on my lunch break, I would go down to the water and walk in the water for an hour. And so I was doing that, and that really... at the first few weeks of it, I felt bad. I felt like I was playing hooky, like the principal was going to find out that I should be at my computer. But eventually, those went away, and I got some really nice time to myself to think and kind of work some things out and come up with some new creative solutions and new ideas. So it was a wonderful time for me.
Living in Austin, you must really cherish those moments now.
I do. Now I'm sad. Now it's too hot to go outside.
Ooh, yeah. So what book have you found instrumental in bringing your mission to life?
Probably the book that I recommend most and that has helped me most is The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. It's really about putting systems and processes in place, and especially for your community who like to travel and get out and be digital nomads. This is a great book to read because if you are going to be out and about, you definitely need to have systems and processes in place. Otherwise, everything's just going to come undone. So a good example is when I was in Bali, I have a podcast and I had 30 interviews already lined up and in the queue before I even left. So all I had to do was release them weekly as I was gone. So that never got interrupted. So that book is great. E-Myth Revisited, especially if you're a digital nomad.
What advice do you have for recent grads looking for meaningful careers?
Oh, truthfully, I would say don't get too attached to it. You can find meaning in just about anything that you do, or you cannot. It's totally your choice. So I think, definitely try to do something that speaks to you, but try not to get too wrapped up in that, because your career is going to be ever changing and you're not married to your first job. Your first job is going to teach you a lot. And just if you keep that in mind, then you'll be good.
So what about those who are in their 30s, 40s, and beyonds who might be feeling stuck or trapped in their current role?
I think if you are feeling that way, then, back to what we were talking about earlier on in the podcast, if people are asking you a question over and over again, you might want to start paying attention, because that could be something that could be something. So if you're feeling stuck in your career, start trying to pay attention to the holes or the space in between that you can innovate. And if people are asking you a certain question over and over again, that could be your way out.
What about women stuck in a culture that's not necessarily friendly towards women?
Honestly, my answer to this every single time is get out. You do not have to fight the good fight. If you're stuck in a company culture that isn't conducive to you, your loyalty should lie with your own learning, not in fixing someone else's culture. So get out and get into a space that is more conducive to you and to your learning, because you'll find that once you finally do leave that culture, that you have wasted way too much time trying to fight it. Cultures like that are not going to be sustainable. Good talent is going to leave, such as yourself, and it's going to be a moot point anyway. So get out as fast as you can and get into a place that's better for you and your learning now.
That point of you don't have to fight the good fight, that just resonates so much.
Not your problem. Not your problem. That's the company's problem.
What role has mentorship played in your life?
Huge role. I have several mentors, male and female, and there's nothing else like it. It's hugely and vastly valuable to you creating and sustaining a company.
Do you have any recommendations on how people can find mentors?
Don't be afraid to ask somebody to be your mentor. Even if you feel that they are way out of your league, just don't be afraid to ask. You might be very much surprised.
Do you have a mantra or a motto that guides your work with Chic CEO?
I do. I have a favorite motto or favorite saying that is actually posted up in my office daily that I look at every day. And it's by Diane Sawyer. And she says, whatever you want in life, other people are going to want it too. Believe in yourself enough to accept the idea that you have an equal right to it.
Powerful.
Love it. It's my favorite.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for your time today. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you about women and entrepreneurship and this new culture that we're going to have in America.
Thanks for having me, Alex. This was super fun.
So how do people get in touch with you or Chic CEO?
You can go to the website, chic-ceo.com. You can email us at hello@chic-ceo.com or find us on social media.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Well, that wraps up another inspiring session with movers, shakers, and changemakers, creating a positive impact on the world. Head on over to positiveimpactpodcast.com/episode 2 for today's show notes. To get a free audio version of Stephanie's recommended reading, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, check out positiveimpactpodcast.com/goodreads. Until next time, keep doing your part to make the world a better place.